Hey, hey! Okay. Let me just start this. Yeah. Okay, so I'm pleased to be here as usual, and today I will talk a bit more about code. And especially about the interactive style guides with the power of React Storybook. So a little bit about myself. I am Vladimir Novick. I am web architect and independent consultant. I do lots of stuff, mostly React-oriented, also augmented reality, virtual reality, and Internet of Things lately. So if you have some interesting project or some just want to send message, say hi, here are my contacts. You have also my page at the end of the lecture. I have, as always, I have some assumptions about yourself. I assume you're familiar a little bit about React. Who used here React ever? We used React a lot. Nice. Okay, I assume you're familiar with ES 2015, and you like cool tools, and you want to be productive, obviously. So I begin with a question: how do we create user interfaces in React? Well, we reuse all the things, we compose everything, and we have a lot of reusable components, right? Think of a huge application like Airbnb. We have tons and tons of these small components scattered around your code, right? And it's good. Our component are basically functions of state and props. Like, for example, you have a button, and this can be a button with a title or caption, or it can be a button with emojis or whatever you want. And basically you change, you pass different prop, different type of a button, you get different button. So your button is a function of its props. Also, you can have kind of smart components. They have inner state, and based on this inner state, component is changed. And you have tons and tons of them. And in React, we try to use as much as we can component composition and functional programming. And yeah, only you can prevent object-oriented programming. And we have amazing tooling. We have like here is an action logger from Redux, and we have React extension, and we have time travel in Redux, and we have Mobix, DevTools, and we have tons of them. And we have Redux and Mobix for state management. But with all of that, with all of this amazing tooling and being productive, we have a set of problems. Not that kind of problems. We have lots of props and components. Our components with time get to be more and more complicated. They have different edge cases of each component. They become harder to test, harder to mock, harder to style. We have visual bugs. We say we don't have visual bugs, but eventually we have visual bugs or undocumented features. We have it's harder for new developers to get in. Imagine the place like Airbnb, somebody tries to implement new date picker. He doesn't aware of that date picker already there in the code. And also we have designers and product are not aware what can be reused, and they re-implement the same designs of the same things and no documentation. Yeah, it's always a problem. We don't document things. We try to do it as much as we can, but still we have deadlines, so we don't document everything. To solve these problems, it's the time to tell stories with React Storybook. So what basically is a storybook? Storybook is isolated UI environment outside of your app. For example, you have a huge app with lots of components. You don't need to change any configuration of the app to run Storybook. You just get Storybook. I will show you how you do that. You just get Storybook, you run it, you get it. Inside the Storybook, you can create interactive user stories for your component. You can link them, you can log actions, you can do lots of things. Storybook can be extended with various plugins, add-ons. You can write your own add-ons. You can actually make it create documentation for you. You don't need to type anything. You have documentation created for you from the code. And it's a great tool for developer, designer, product, QA, support, whatever. And it's fun. I said Storybook, right? Why Storybook? What is a story, basically? A story is a visual state of your UI component. I mentioned date picker. Date picker can be different types, different styles. It can have different functionality. You have maybe small date pickers with only dates. You have huge date pickers with all the with multiple dates you can select, whatsoever. So let me show you. I talked about Airbnb. They have one of their storybooks available. So let me show you how does it look like. So date picker, right? Start date, end date, hidden date picker. You can show it, hide it as part of a form, non-English, with dates button, with different variations of date picker. And you have some actions logger here. I will show you in a minute how you log your actions. But you ready? Documentation built for you by React Storybook. Have prop types, you have all the props, the component received, have actual source how you use your component. New developer just goes inside the Storybook, goes inside the documentation and sees how to use your component. You don't write a word here, it's created automatically for you. Okay, so let's get back to our presentation. So how do we create Storybook? First of all, I need to get Storybook from npm, install it globally. After I do so, it's working? Working, okay. Yeah. After it's like 5 minutes from now, I need this for live coding and stuff like that. Okay, so you get Storybook from npm. Then you generate Storybook inside your application, and then you run it. Basically, that's it. That's what happens. When I type get Storybook, what do I get? I get, and again, isolated environment running port 909. It's built by Create React App. If you're not familiar with Create React App, I really suggest you to check that. It has lots of predefined configuration for you, Webpack configuration with all the amazing tooling and stuff. So you basically get Babel ES 2016. It's not a mistake, it's really 2016. We have async await and object rest. Have .babel RC support, Webpack, CSS, images, static files, JSON loader, and it was created by Create React App, so it can be ejected, and you can change this configuration to whatever you like. So for purpose of this presentation, I took To Do MVC project built with React and Redux, forked it, and created a storybook for it. So it will be available after the lecture. You can go to GitHub and see all the code. When you run get storybook, you basically get a folder .storybook with config.js. It's a storybook configuration. There goes all the requires of stories and a couple of stuff we will check later. And you have a new folder called stories. You see my mouse? Yeah. Predefined, we have index, which is endpoint. We have button and welcome, just to show you how stories must be created. It's generated automatically by React Storybook. So the first thing, basically what you do, you just delete them and use your stories, write your stories. How do you write your stories? You import stories from Kadira Storybook. And then it's kind of similar to testing, like have described and you have it, right? So stories of, it's a caption of the your component, and basically what you will see on the left sidebar, and each add is your story, your visual representation of component. So in this case, we have button with on click. I will cover it in a bit. Hello button, and we have emojis button. With stories, we can log action. You see there, here is an action logger, right? So in order to log action, you can just use actions imported from Storybook with a caption. You will see an action logger, you will see a caption, and you will see a payload that is getting inside the callback you've passed, inside the function. It's a function argument gets inside the on-click callback. And you can link stories, which is, I think, really amazing feature. You're familiar with InVision app? Like in InVision app, it's a tool for designers. You can link between various images of your design, and you can actually create interactive stories. The same you can do with Storybook. You just use link to, and when clicked on this specific link, you will get linked to another story. No worries, I will show it in the code in a bit. Tell me when I... No, when I have like 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, so we talked about config, .storybook config, right? So here we use configure. That's the things you will get predefined. So for the common use case, you won't actually touch that unless you want to add some specific add-ons. But here you require stories. You configure add-ons. In particular old add-ons, because new have kind of bit different mechanism. I will show it. And if you have global CSS styles, you import it here, or you can just import it inside your index.js. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we have lots of add-ons. I mentioned the most important ones, but on Storybook website there are pretty big gallery with add-ons. So we have live documentation. We have snapshot testing. Imagine you write only story, and then you run test, and you get tests built in for you. I will show it too. Then you write your own test, and you want inside the Storybook to see specs panel. You want to see which tests are passed and which fail. You can do that. You can add nodes, and you can add the dynamic props panel. For example, for components that you have, you want to see how changes in props reflects on the component itself and the visual state of a component. So, yeah, how much time am left? Great. Okay, let's do something like this. Let's start with our demo. If you don't see, wait, that's better? Okay, so what do I have here? I will just start this application, and I have work. Yeah, you have, like, you know, to do MVC app, regular one with filters and with regular stuff, right? Okay, so and I don't have storybook, right? Okay, so let's add one.
Shame, you're in 17.
Hmm?
It's 22 now, for shame.
I noted it. Okay, so now I want to see my storybook. Don't say shame because of Atom, because there we can enter into discussion.
Yeah, you'll have to buy me a beer so I can explain to you why it's bad.
Okay, we'll talk about it later. Okay, so hope you see, here is our new storybook with config. I showed you, and we have stories with welcome and button. These are stories, and button and welcome are our components. It's just pre-defined, pre-created components for us. Okay, so I want to run my storybook. I run it, and then, no, it's a raffle. It's later. It's the wrong one. And I get my storybook. As simple as that. It was pretty fast, right? So now let's take a look at a real. Wait. It's a real storybook. I'll just delete everything. Sorry. Okay. Hopefully it will work. I hope. Sorry, yeah. Cross your fingers. I hope it will work. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look what we have. We have nothing, right? Because we have no to-dos. We have main section without to-dos. Let's check out main section with one to-do. So have one to-do. And then we have several to-dos, right? These are visual state of our components, but they are also linked. So if I have one to-do and I click, you see I get to no to-dos. And when I click here, I will get to several to-dos. See how it works? So also, I think it's here. Yeah. You see action logger? When I double click? Yeah. When I double click, I get edit to do with ID, with number, and basically I have arguments array here, and it's Redux section. I haven't added Redux here. It just works because I pass actions to the on-click prop. Then I have a header and I have a footer. Well, a footer a bit complicated. So at first, let's see header. In header, I have notes. And yeah, I have documentation of all of this. And I have to do item, which is not styled, because that's how to do MVC is created. I don't know why they styled it inside the parent component. And then you have completed to do, which is basically selected, and you have to do text input. It can be with text, with not editing, with text, editing, without text, no placeholder, without text, with placeholder. Like visual states of your component. And footer is basically our filter. So have no items here, all active and completed, and all is selected. Now, what happens if I have no completed, 10 active, and show all filter? You have 10 items left, you see? And then I have 5 completed, 10 active, show all filter. I have clear completed added here. And then I have 5 completed, 10 active, and show active, and filter. You understand what the pattern here, right? And I also have dynamic props, which is at first it looks the same, but I have this knobs panel, so I can add 10, and you see 10 clear completed is added. And then I have can add active count, and you see here 10 items left is added, right? And then filter, instead of show all, I will show active or show completed. Okay. Okay. Now before we look at the code, I hope it will work too. I think I didn't install story shots. Sorry for that. Basically, when I run npm run test storybook, there is add-on. It's called story shots. When you when you run it, when you add the npm script with command story shots, which is not working, but you will see it later. It's not working. Let me check one thing.
It's not in the package JSON.
Okay. You will see it in the repo. Okay. Anyway, when you run test storybook, you will get all your all stories you wrote. They basically use just snapshot testing. They have all the visual representation of your component with styles, with everything, and creates a snapshot file inside your storybook folder. And on each next test, it compares your current test run against the generated snapshot file. So if you change the color, you will have test failing, which is kind of nice for visual testing. Okay, so now let's take a look at our stories. Okay, so we have index with main section, header, footer, to-do item, and to-do text input. Okay, let's take a look at the header, which is pretty simple. We have with notes, it's an add-on for live documentation, and I basically wrap my header with notes sorry, not for live documentation, for adding notes. I wrap my header with notes component, and what I put inside notes is available on notes panel in Storybook. There is another add-on for Markdown support. So if you want to add your real documentation created by hand in a Markdown, you can do that, but you need a little bit mess with Storybook config. Again, it's all the documentation is available on the Storybook website, so just check Markdown add-ons. There's a pretty understandable set of instructions there how to set it. Then we have footer. No, footer is always tricky. Okay, I have main section, right? And main section is the whole to-dos list, right? So I have no to-dos, I have with one to-do, and I pass sections. When I hit complete to-do action, I link to main section and several to-dos.
This is all auto-generated?
No, it's me generated.
You generated?
Yeah. It's specifically for to-do MVC. But basically, you can see, I hope you can see the pattern. You use stories off, and you pass description that you will see in the sidebar. And you have add with info. It's add-on for information, for adding live documentation. And if you wrap your story inside add with info function, you will get live documentation on the bar on the right here. Okay, it will check the source code and stuff like this. For actions, here I have Redux actions. So instead of using complete to do Redux action, I just link to another story. Same for delete, same for edit. And that's it for main section. I have some helper functions just to map through all the Redux section keys and basically log them inside the console. You can read it later or ask me after the presentation. And then you have a footer, which comes with decorator. You've seen the dynamic props panel, right? So it's called with knobs, and it's another add-on. So there are a lot of add-ons here, and you can check the source code later. You can ask me a question about that. I'm really happy to answer. Basically, this example, it kind of concludes all the important add-ons. So if you want to use live documentation, just get into this example, see how it's implemented, and start doing this. Regarding the add-on system, a brief word about it. Inside Storybook, you have addons.js. Inside, you import all your add-ons, and basically that's it. Why it's not running? I wanted to show the... it's another one. Okay. I want to show tests, but... okay, I will edit it later and... okay. So anyway, this is a storybook. This is how you do awesome stuff for style guiding and testing and documentation and stuff like this. And yeah, if you want a consultation, contact me on About Me Novick. My site is currently under maintenance, so I don't share it for now. But basically, it's vladjs.com. Yeah. And you have questions? Yeah.
So you're saying in order to show flow, you have to link to different components and different
The question is, if I want to show a flow, I need to link between components and different states, right? In case you want to create end-to-end visual test, yeah, you need to link between them. The same as you would have done in Vision app. But usually use case is not linking, is creating visual states separately and then creating another story with end-to-end tests. So like in our example, for example, you will have a main section, no to-dos, without stuff linked. And then you will have main section end-to-end. Yeah, and then you will have linking between things. Questions?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I'm missing out something, but is there a way to express hierarchical containers like in atomic design, like in pattern lab? Is it familiar?
The question is.
Molecules, organisms.
The question is if I can express with a storybook atomic design, right? That's basically the question. It's an environment you can do everything what you want. If you want to express, you mean hierarchies? You mean if I have main section and then down and down? Basically, storybook is with React in mind, so you have isolated components that you reuse. So if we are talking about atomic design, you have particles, you have molecules, right? Particle is basically the presentational component, and molecule is a higher order component or container component, if you like. So you can obviously express your presentational components inside the list, like here, button, for example, and you can express the whole molecule or stuff like that, like the whole container with all the edge cases. The thing is, the option to pass action helper of Storybook as a callback prop is really powerful for logging out Redux actions and not involving Redux in the picture. Like you don't need to mock anything, you just pass action with a label. Yeah. Questions?
Do you have any suggestions about, you know what, I have two questions. First of all, if at any stage, is there any stage that it's in a startup goal that you would suggest to use Storybook? Like, if I'm starting a startup right now, if it's a smart move to start with Storybook, to develop my components on Storybook, or go like the normal approach that without using it.
People like the first one.
Yeah, the first one and then the second one. The first question is if when at some point at the startup you want to start using Storybook, right? That's basically summarize the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when Storybook got out, there is a kind of saying Storybook-driven development. Sounds kind of weird, but if you have isolated environment and you develop your component inside of it, outside of your app, you think API first. You think that your components need to get props from outside, so you really can reuse them. If you use them inside your application, sometimes you like sometimes you have like small hacks, or this feature needs to be in production right now, and you know it's kind of hard to really think API first, and that this component will be reused whenever it goes. So developing in Storybook, I would say from the beginning. Like it's have a real visual representation of your component and basically everything you need. And I think that for most people who start with Redux core or Mobix core and then goes inside the component, that for my opinion, it's a wrong approach, because After all, you can start using React State and React components as them, and as your application grows, you add more state management systems and stuff like that. The second and yeah. More questions?
No, that's
Thanks.
no.
Okay, I'm available here after Shai tells. Thanks, guys.
Pum pa bum pa bum pum pa bum 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 pum pum pum.